Hello everybody, it is me, GamePenguin21, and today... So last week, we got some of the numbers, or at least the supposed numbers, of the amount of sales of the Switch 2, and the total number coming back, at least from the week that I got this, which was about last week, was 3.5 million, which means that it technically sold more than, I guess, the PC Steam Deck, which, you know what, I didn't expect much from that, but to be honest, I kind of did expect this to be that way, because it became one of the fastest selling consoles, at least in terms of sheer numbers. Now, this in turn means that the Nintendo fanboys have been taking this completely and utterly well, and, you know, just saying, yes, congratulations to that, but obviously not. I wouldn't be making this video if that was the case. They have become kind of insufferable because of just the sheer amount of trying to, I guess, justify the thing here. I wouldn't say that inevitably the Switch 2 is a bad console. In fact, I think it's an okay console. I personally believe that it's overpriced and that I didn't necessarily think that it would sell badly, just that it would not sell as good, but I am surprised that it sold as good as it has. Though again, these are just kind of the day one kind of sales here. So there was a lot of people retweeting the numbers and, well, basically just deciding to quote-unquote dunk on the PC guys, so we're going to take a look at a fair amount of them today. But if you like what it is that I do and support in any other way, shape, or form, other than like and subscribe, which is always enough, links down to everything in the description below. And again, I'm looking to hit 1.5k by the end of this year, so please hit that stuff. And my new album is probably going to be out by the end of summer, so look out for that. I also stream every Sunday at 12 p.m. EST. Make sure you stop on by. With that being said, let's get started here. So the initial tweet that I actually taking down here through the Twitter handles was when I initially found the Steam Deck that was trending on Twitter. This was the tweet that kind of led me down that, saying that the Switch 2 got as many sales in 3 days as the Steam Deck did in 3 years. I mean, yeah, one of the big things and the reasons as to why is because the Nintendo Switch is actually marketed and mass-marketed specifically as a, well, more casual device. That's not a bad thing, and again, that's not the worst thing in the world. Again, everyone and their mother seems to be coming out with some sort of handheld device, and some of them do different things better than others. Now, again, some people are going to be comparing this mostly to the Steam Deck here, but to compare this to, say, I think the Xbox Rogue Ally handheld that's coming out soon as well. I mean, again, people are just looking at this being like, oh, well, the Sony is gonna eventually doing that, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. It's up in the air, but of course, people are gonna be like, what about the PlayStation Portal? It's not the same device. It doesn't even fall under the same kind of category here. But yeah. Congratulations to the Switch 2 for selling that many. Pori here says outsold Steam Deck in less than a week. Damn. I mean, I guess I don't really know what the significance is, as again, they're not necessarily competing for the same audience per se. Again, one of the big reasons why I didn't want to get a Nintendo Switch 1 or a Switch 2 is, or now even a Switch 2, is mainly because of the Steam Deck. But I've realized that I'm not the kind of person who even wants or needed anything that the Steam Deck offered for me. All that I wanted was really the handheld device, or the pocket ability, or well, more the backpack ability, I guess, of it. And I'm not going to say that it's a bad device. It is a very good device for what it offers. But again, I personally think the Switch 2 is now kind of overpriced. Even the Switch 1 nowadays is kind of being a little bit meh. But overall, I mean, so that's just my own personal opinion. Next up here, we have Nintendo bans when an effing Nintendo Switch, second best-selling console ever, outsells the Steam Deck, which is just one device in a much wider PC market, and is not even competing with the Switch, but with other PC handhelds. Now, I will say this. The person here has the right idea, but they're missing the specifics here. See, the PC handheld Steam Deck is a direct competitor to most of the other PC handhelds on the market concurrently. It was a market leader at the time, and is still technically a market leader, and is probably the best thing that you can get in that specific marketplace. Now, that's not to say that the Switch 2 and the Switch were not competing with the Steam Deck, because they technically were. They're just not direct competitors, as I will say here. Now, what is the difference between direct competitors and direct competitors, blah, blah, blah. Now, I would put the Switch and the Steam Deck not in the direct competitor categories, which are competitors that are very specifically competing against one another within the same market space, within the same, and abiding by the same markets. No. I think that the Nintendo Switch aims for more of a, I guess, console-esque environment rather than, aiming outside of that by much. So they're not necessarily direct competitors. I would definitely say that they're, I don't remember the second tier, but they're not general competitors. Well, they are, I guess they are general competitors, but they are the indirect, I guess, or the market area, where they are not absolutely direct competitors, but they are still technically kind of competing with them, because they are both within the handheld computing market, as per se. ADS Nero here says, Steam Deck after getting outsold by the Switch 2 in less than a week. Lamau, I didn't hear no bell. And yeah, I think that that's a very fair thing to say. That the Switch, the Switch, I nearly said the Switch Deck. The Steam Deck specifically doesn't really, again, doesn't really have that Switch 2 as a direct competitor, like I said before. But they are still competing, and, I mean, again, people are just saying, oh, it's just the Steam Deck. What about the Rogue Ally? What about the other one? It's like, oh, well, they're not at the same price point, and there are still PC handhelds. Like, yeah, well, I mean, I guess if we're just going to go by price point, then that means that the Switch would also be then competing with things in the second-hand market as well. So it's like very weird to kind of say that. But I mean, at the same time, the Steam Deck is still far superior in my own personal opinion, but we'll get into that as we go on into this video. Grumble Pop with a Steam Deck users when they're told to play Steam games and not just use a custom OS just to play emulated games, where someone talked about Switch emulation on the Steam Deck. Now, let me be clear here and just say that people on the Steam Deck can do to hell whatever they want with the device. I mean, again, that's what Valve intends for this device to be. And it's funny how people are like, oh yeah, they all that they want to do is just emulate our games because, our games are the best. It's like, well, I mean, some of the older games are probably really, really good and most definitely really, really solid. But overall, there are still games and a lot more games that are, natively run on Steam and natively run on the device. And emulation just happens to be one aspect of people that want this device to actually have the device to do. And again, this is, a niche of a niche. I personally wanted to emulate with the Steam Deck as well, but I didn't initially buy it for that. I bought it because I wanted to play more games on the go, and I wanted to lighten my backpack load. So emulation just happened to be one of the selling points that I happen to like. But then again, I'm one that wanted to introduce myself into that sort of emulation in the first place. So again, they're not necessarily competing for the same audience here, hence why the earlier comparison makes no sense. Next up here with Axolotl GTR saying, you shouldn't buy the Switch 2. Okay, why not? Well, the Steam Deck, and then the person just kind of is not listening anymore. And here's the thing. You shouldn't buy the Switch 2 because, in my personal opinion, I don't think that you should be supporting Nintendo overcharging you for gaming and stuff. And a lot of people have brought up the same point as well. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the Steam Deck in and of itself is, well, competing on it, but I will just say that overall the Steam Deck is actually a better product than the Nintendo Switch 2, even the Nintendo Switch 1, because again, just sheer power on paper. But obviously, yes, there are going to be many reasons why other people don't want to buy the Switch 2. And again, the whole reason why I even wanted the Switch to begin with was just to play video games on the go more. But again, I knew that I didn't want to bite the bullet and give my money to someone that, was Nintendo. And yes, Nintendo did make good products. I mean, I had the Nintendo DS, and let me just say, that shit fucking slaps. And my first big console was actually the Wii, so I do have some very good experience with Nintendo. But overall, they never really gave me exactly what I wanted, and the Nintendo Switch never really enticed me enough with what it offered for me to give it to me. So, but I still wanted it because there were other people that had it, and that was really the only reason why. But since it's the end of the life cycle, and also since now I have a device that gives me everything that I want and more that I knew that I didn't know that I want, guess what? The Steam Deck is now my personal mobile kind of gaming device, and has seen me through a couple years of college now. So, just kind of happens. Next up here we have TM06 with, it's been a week since the Nintendo Switch 2 release. I honestly cannot recommend a Steam Deck over this device. For $450, you're getting more than your money's worth. No. In my personal opinion, I don't think that that's the case. Saying that you're getting more for your money's worth for $450 for a device that you will continuously have to invest in, and also a device that you continuously have to pay for in order to continuously get some of the actual stuff out of it. No, you are not getting all that is worth for that $450. For $450, I would seriously expect a lot of different features to actively be unlocked, mainly because there is one particular button that $450 does not actually cover, because you still have to buy into their sort of online ecosystem in order to actually get what is essentially, we have Discord at home. So no, I would much rather prefer a Steam Deck, which actually is $100 to $200 cheaper, depending on the model, and depending on if you get them secondhand, maybe not. But again, for $450, the Steam Deck at its lowest price is around $300. And yes, you only get about 64 gigabytes of storage on that, but no, actually, that's not true, because they got rid of the 64 gigabytes and actually made it 256 gigs. So yeah, but that is for the $350 version of it. If you want to get an OLED display, higher amounts of storage, and better maybe not better ergonomics, but better like overall hardware, like a slight upgrade, then you're gonna go up to $500, but you get about 1 terabyte of actual data storage, which is insane considering the device is still around the same size. So, you get what you pay for, and I would personally recommend the Steam Deck over even the Switch 2, because yeah, you're gonna take a little bit of the hit in the performance, maybe, if you really care, I guess, but overall you get access to more games, you get access to more free services and more things that actually make the experience better, and you can tinker the experience to your personal needs and wants, because it actually uses an OS system that doesn't just lock you into a particular thing. And again, one thing that I want to also emphasize here is the sheer fact that this thing got hacked in practically day one, and is still continuing to get hacked. I'll talk more about that in the end of month thing that I will do next week, so be on the lookout for that video. Next up here we have a Proficia Gaming with, so how many Steam Decks were sold in those 4 days? So how many people claimed they will buy one instead? Talking about the 3.5 million there. And yeah, that is one of the interesting things about this, is that people were talking about the whole boycott that was happening, and how in turn people said like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna buy this because of this and that and the other reason. One of the actual big people that did talk down about the Steam Deck, but then ended up buying one and had to make a whole apology, was Mutahar, or Some Ordinary Gamer. Yeah, again, I'll pick someone else while they're a little bit down there, because Jesus Christ, that was a pretty big thing. If you want more information on it, just kind of check over on Mutahar's channel, or check over on someone other than that in the commentary space, just, Next up here we have Lake with a thank you, Alarmo, for your sacrifice, talking about how there was massive success versus massive failures across the board here. Alarmo, which I didn't even know was a thing. It's apparently an alarm clock that I guess worked with your Nintendo Switch 1 or something. Well, I don't know if that's the case about that, Chief, but Sure, we'll go with that. Next up here we have Tori, or retro VTuber, with I don't like shit on people having fun, but seeing so many people comparing the sales with the Steam Deck is stupid. It's like making fun of the unit sales of a Ferrari while showing the Prius sales graph. Normies don't want to be bothered with PC. Now, here's the thing. I don't think that that's the case, because PC itself has been pretty normalized and has one of the biggest audiences here. Even capturing about like 1 to 2% of the entire PC market is a very big, substantial number when you put everything into perspective. Even 1% of, say, the 32 or 37, however the fuck many millions are on Steam, just 1% of that can literally dwarf entire sales numbers in terms of games on other platforms, at least from, if you could do the math there. I'm not going to do the official full math, but I think about like 200 to 300K is about 1%. I think I'm a little off there. I might be about 10 to 15% off, so I'm not too certain. But saying that normies don't want to be bothered with a PC, no, I don't think that that's the case. I think normies don't want to be bothered with a handheld PC because they don't see it as a thing that they would necessarily want, despite the fact that, again, there are about like several millions of people that do actually want a handheld PC, hence why they bought it. But at the same time, who is the Ferrari and who is the Prius in this context? If the Nintendo Switch 2 is the Prius, I guess that makes sense, with the Ferrari being the Steam Deck in some cases. I don't know. This comparison is very weird, but I kind of see where they're coming from with this. But I think that I'm missing a little bit of a context or a little bit of a point in this here. I don't think this is necessarily salty. I think this is just a very interesting comparison that I wanted to talk about. So, quite interesting. But yeah, I do agree that comparing it to the Steam Deck numbers is kind of dumb. So yeah. Next up here we have Joy Freya saying miserable Switch 2 haters right now with a screaming emoji or a screaming GIF. I'm not miserable. I'm actually having a great time with both my Steam Deck and, you know, the Finals Season 7, which has actually dropped, which you can't actually play on the Switch as far as I'm aware. Maybe on the Switch 2. That'd be pretty cool. Having that come onto the Switch 2. Imagine that. It'd be neat. But again, I'm perfectly fine with my Steam Deck, and though it might be a little more underpowered than, say, even my laptop from like 8 or 9 years ago, though I think that that's kind of more comparable, at the end of the day, I prefer my Steam Deck because it just gives me everything that I want and then some. It doesn't give me any sorts of fluff and nonsense that I don't care about, which is mainly a lot of what the Switch 2 has. Again, that's my own personal opinion, but you can have your whatever opinion you want here. I'm not going to be crying and screaming saying, "Yeah, why are you doing it?" Like, no. I'm going to make fun of you because there are just really fun, dumb takes here. Of course, there is also Metal Swag Curb doing about the same thing, saying Doomers thinking the Switch 2 is going to be like the Wii U. I'm not sure if it was going to be like that, but, I mean, this is just the beginning of its life cycle. It could just reach about 3.5 million and then just kind of stop selling for one reason or another. Though, again, we're just going to have to wait a bit. It's probably going to have updated numbers, and I expect about another 1 million or 2 million by the time that this video comes out. So, again, check your local news if you care. These are just, like, some things from the week ago. So, Next up here we have Alcar47, I think that's how you pronounce that, with 2 months ago, everyone on YouTube was just spamming, drop the price, drop the price. I'm pretty sure at least 3 million people were okay with the price. I mean, I know some people that were okay with the price and very much are, and I can respect that, but the same people that were saying, like, drop the price, or some of the same people that definitely bought it as well. I do definitely think, again, that the price is too high for what it offers, and again, it doesn't even give you the full extent of the actual console's development and stuff. And again, it has been hacked day one, so I really, again, do not see a need for me to get this console, or even a want for me to get this console. But then again, that's very much my own personal opinion here. Next up here we have Jazzy Jefferson with the Switch 2 is not selling. It's still on shore shelves. Saw no hype about it. No reviews before the launch. Will hurt sales. And then just the 3 million retweet thing here with this person doing the accuracy of someone, getting their mind blown about that. Again, I don't think or don't even really know who was saying a lot of this stuff. I mean, they might have been saying a lot of this stuff. I, again, don't really have anything to offer in terms of insight into that. It's just, this is a very weird and strange comment that just makes no sense, but we're continuing here. Nathan with, I'm not even joking, bro. When I held this beautiful piece of hardware for the first time and experienced games running good in handheld mode, I just never wanted to let go. It's so peak. Now, I'm not gonna kind of shit all over this man's biscuit, I guess, and you're very much allowed to think that this okay device is good and peak. It's really not, because quite honestly, there is a lot of limitations to it. And well, yeah, it is impressive that they were able to get a lot of the technology squeezed into this. I wouldn't actually say that it's peak. But this is interesting because I actually felt this same way when I was holding and playing with my Steam Deck. So, I guess each of us has our own opinion about what thing is peak. Burn with here, who to blame when €90 games hit Steam and PlayStation. The unfortunate thing about that, Sir Brun here is, Sir, not Brun, however the fuck you pronounced your name, they have already hit Steam and PlayStation, or at least they've hit Steam because Microsoft also prices their games on Steam as well. So $80 to €90 game, the higher priced games have already hit Steam, hence why Doom the Dark Ages isn't actually selling that well, or wasn't actually selling that well, because it was like, I think, an $80 game. So, oops. But yeah, just wanted to point that out. Demi here saying, I think some of you care a little bit too much about this console to be screaming and raving about, but the price. I mean, I don't really care. If you like the price and the price is okay for you, I'm not going to stop you for it. I'm going to personally talk about it by my own standpoint and say, I don't think that it's worth about $450, or the price of the games that they would offer to be worth about $80. Again, both of those, in my opinion, are a bit too expensive for the actual price of anything in this context. Andre here with, Nintendo's playing it smart by only saying it's their fastest selling hardware ever, as you never know when PlayStation might find another 3 million PS2s they forgot they sold during the launch 25 years ago. Again, I think that this is a very much an interesting joke here, but I don't think that it's the fastest selling. I don't know. It was said to be the fastest selling console ever. We'll have to see. The 3 million could just be the, amount that they had within the time here. Again, it is just one of those things that, at the end of the day, overall sales, I think, matter more than fastest growing sales, because there were sales of consoles and things that had a ton of sales at the beginning, but then immediately dropped off the face of the earth, never to be seen again. And to end off this whole video here with Blandrew saying, the gaming media tried their hardest to with constant lies and misinformation to stop this from happening, didn't they? I mean, this is just the game. If you're talking about gaming journalism, why the fuck would you just rely on gaming journalism in the first place? I don't know of anyone that tried to, quote unquote, stop this, unless, we're talking about maybe Frit, which he was mostly joking. I'm going to assume so to, avoid being arrested by the FBI. But at the same time, I never said that the actual Switch was going to fail. Again, the Switch is a very popular console, and the Switch is under Nintendo, which does have a very good amount of things. And if I ever did say that, I think that I take all of that back. I don't think that the Switch itself would sell good, or would sell as good, I guess. I don't really remember what I've said, because, quite honestly, it's just annoying to remember a lot of that stuff, and also the ADHD medication is starting to wear off. So I think that'll about end it there. So yeah, what did we learn today? Well, we learned that 3.5 million people either lied on the internet about not wanting to buy the Switch in order to, purchase it for themselves, or, about half of those people did the same thing. And at the same time, this has become one of the fastest selling consoles of all time, allegedly, but at the same time, I'm not sure how well that success is going to carry over moving forward. But overall, comparing to the Steam Deck and its sales numbers is kind of stupid, as the last time we heard about the sales numbers was like 2 or 3 years ago, so unsure as to how many sales had, been in its lifetime, so who knows. But at the end of the day, I don't think you should buy the Switch 2 because it is just not a good system, in my personal opinion. Yeah, it has good specs, and yeah, it has good games, certainly, if you like all that stuff. But I just personally think that a lot of the things that it does is overpriced and kind of scammy. But that's just my personal opinion. Overall, I think that'll about do it for this episode of I Ran Into This Microphone, which is certainly starting to smell like Guacamole Gamer Fart 9000. Use code BADGER for 10% off. Yes, I did shill another YouTuber's thing. Go fuck yourself. My name is GamePang21. If you like what it is that I do and support me in any other way, shape, or form other than like and subscribe, which is always down below. I'm looking at 1.5k by the end of the year. I stream every Sunday at 12 p.m. EST. That is Eastern Standard Time, so be there or be square. But yeah, right here on YouTube, and I'm also looking to co-stream it onto Twitch, so watch out on Twitch as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and a peace!
Can I get a favor? Yeah, sure, hi!